Let's talk about trade value, habitats, and spiritualists. I have a little chapter structure this time. I will inform you what the chapter structure is right now. First, I will talk about a bit trade value in general, what I know about it. After this chapter, you should be very aware of how to do trade value. Then I will talk a bit about habitats and the economy you have with habitats and habitat growth. For this, I will be assuming that you are going for a void dweller start. However, it also applies to just getting random habitats. Then I will talk a bit about Gospel of the Masses, how that interacts with your allies specifically. I will talk about pop efficiency, especially regarding technicians and merchants, trade value conversion, TV, always trade value, living standards, what living standards might be best, and what their impact is regarding trade value. I will talk a bit about bulk selling resources. As little spoiler, if you go merchant, you will have an overabundance of consumer goods. I will talk a bit about ethics attraction and the different factions that appear. I'll note right now, but I'll explain in a bit as well. This is the chapter that I'm most uncertain about. A lot of this is speculation. I did some very rough testing. It should be about what I'm telling you there, but I'm not right on my money, I think. It's about the same range. Then I'll discuss branch offices very, very quickly, and I'll go into the strategy you do with going void dweller merchants, and I will talk a bit about my builds. Chapter 0, an intro into trade value. Now then, let's begin with the most interesting part, in my opinion. Trade value. How does it work? Now, as a most general rule, all your trade value comes from planets. Exceptions exist, obviously, but just in general. Trade value is a resource, is not a resource, it is a modifier. This is very important to remember, since this means trade value does not get the bonus from all your jobs produce X% more output. And all trade value at the end of the month is automatically converted into resources. Your trade value is a modifier that says per month you get X resources. And there are only two ways to increase your trade value production. There are the two trade value trade value traits. One of them being new and for robots, one of them being old and for organics. You have thrifty and trading algorithm. Both of them give plus 25% trade value from jobs. This only applies to jobs. For example, here we have a thrifty little guy. Here you can see he is thrifty, and he produces 15 trade value. 25% of 12 is 3. 12 plus 3 is 15. There you go. Yeah, thrifty and trading algorithms only affect jobs like merchants or clerks. I will quickly go over what the different jobs are. Also, small side tangent, trading algorithms does cost 0.5 energy per pop that has it, per month, new upkeep. Alright, the different jobs that produce trade value. You have merchants. This is my thrifty merchant, you can see there. Produces 15 trade value. Base of 12 trade value plus 3 for thrifty and trading algorithms. 25% each. Other trade value jobs are, for example, the executive, who produces 4 trade value. Most of them always also produce some other resources, but I'll just skip over that, since for this idea it's not very interesting. The artificer, I did not note down how much he'll gain, but you can simply calculate that, since the artificer will be nerfed to lose their trade value bonus. At least that's what I have heard. Then there is the manager job. Produces 2 trade value. He is the megacorp version of the administrator and replaces 1 priest if you are a spiritualist. You have clerks. Don't imply clerks. Clerks are trash. 4 trade value base. 5 trade value if you get a specific tradition. Don't. Bell divers get plus 3 trade value, and anglers get plus 2. And yeah. There is a second way to increase your trade value, and that is any bonus that says trade value plus X%. For example, there are multiple traditions that do that. You'll easily find it. I'll have a list of all the different bonuses later. Now, fun fact. Most POPs inherently produce trade value, depending on what living standards they are. And depending on how many consumer goods this living standards at a base uses, you get more or less trade value. There is no tooltip that states this in game, but this is something that happens. It should be well known, but for the longest time I was unaware of that. Just be aware, most POPs inherently produce trade value, especially if they are leaders or have a high upkeep regarding consumer goods. Now, to quickly go over the different living standards that exist, I will have the living standard here, and then this is the column with the rulers, specialists, workers, and slaves. As you can see here, upkeep of 1 consumer goods leads to 0.5 trade value per pop. Upkeep of 0.25 leads to income of 0.2 trade value. Slaves, notably, do not produce any trade value despite them having a consumer goods upkeep. Utopian abundance, very nice. And any pop that has an upkeep of 0.1 gets 0.1 trade value. And 0.25 becomes 0.2 trade value, 0.5 becomes 0.33. Slaves do not produce trade value. They're all just the basic living standards. I will talk a bit more about this later, but this is just something to keep in mind, the most interesting bits. Now, how much trade value am I actually producing? If you have your little planet site right here, where I have the big circle, this is where you can see the total trade value produced on the planet after any modifiers. So, total trade value production on this planet. Or habitat in this case, but it's the same for both. Now, when you hover over this little, place, it shows you how much trade value you produce in actuality, which is just the same number as here, just with a few decimals. How many of those you get from POPs. This is your living standard. And how many you get from POP jobs, which is your merchants, clerks, and so on and so on. And then you get your trade value bonuses here. You can see you get a bonus from playing on a lower difficulty. For this testing, I used the save that was on a lower difficulty. And there are some different bonuses, and all of these bonuses apply additively to this. What does this mean? Assume we only have the 2 top bonuses. Then we take 20 plus 50 equals 70. So we get 235 times 170%. This is how the calculation usually works. So, those bonuses apply to the from POPs as well. Fun fact, your trade value plus X% also applies to the trading companies, offworld trading companies, which produce 2 trade value per trade hub that you have. Are they worth it? I will say very directly, nah, just get anchorages instead. The trade value produced here is worse than a clerk, who already is pretty trash, and anchorage are just a soldier job. A soldier gives 4 naval capacity, and an anchorage also gives 4 naval capacity. With that 1 tech, that gets bumped up to 6, and with 1 building, that also gets bumped up to 6. So just go for anchorages, save yourself some money on fleet upkeep. Also, another fun fact. The trade value plus X% also applies to deposits, such as asteroids that can happen. It is not mentioned anywhere, however it counts for piracy. So, if a deposit, for example, gives you 6 trade value, you have a plus 100%, let's say plus 101% bonus to trade value, and you have a system with 12 trade suppression, then your trade value, being now 12.1 will be above this line, and you will start to incur piracy. This bit is not mentioned anywhere, as is this bit, but it is a fact. I have tested that, and I'm very disappointed that it is not mentioned anywhere. Either way, trade value collection. So you now produce your trade value on your little station. How do you actually get the bonus from that? For that, there is this little button, trade routes map mode. If you unlock that, you will get this big sign right there, and you will see trade routes. The blue lines you can see, so those are trade routes. How this works is basically, if you want to harvest, quote unquote, the trade value that you have, if you actually want to get this bonus right here, this is the bonus that you are currently getting per month, then your trade value needs to be transported to your main capital. As you can see by the little blips, this is my main capital. So let's say I'm producing 10 trade value here. How do I actually get that represented in here? I select this system, left click, and then select another system with right click. For example, I select this system. Then a trade route will be sent there. One thing, you can only send trade value to a system with an upgraded starbase. I could not send my trade value to here and then down to here. Also, the game will always pick the shortest path between two places where you can send your trade value. For example, if I tell him to send trade value to this system right here, it will not go the long way around, but it will take the shorter way with one hyperjump instead of two. Anything I missed? Trade value needs to reach your capital to be harvested, right? Only upgraded stations can collect trade value. So let's say I have a station producing like 12 trade value here. If the system is not upgraded, I cannot get this trade value. However, if I have upgraded this starbase and I have placed a trading hub, the building that I have shown you earlier, then I will be able to collect trade value from one jump away. If I build another of those trade hubs, I can now take trade value from 2 jumps away. It is kind of an aura. Upgraded starbase have a trade value collection range of 1. They will collect trade value in their own system. Trade hubs give a trade collection range of +1, as I stated. Trade value collection does not create piracy. Assume we have a little place here producing 12 trade value. Assume we have a upgraded starbase here with 2 trading hubs, so it can collect trade value from here. This system right here, despite being in a theoretical trade route that would go through there from being collected, this system does not incur any piracy. If you select an upgraded starbase, you left click and then you can tell it where to send the trade value. This you will usually not need to do. This will be done automatically. But assuming that you want your trade value to go a specific path, then it might be necessary. The shortest route will be selected, usually not necessary since it's done automatically, and the blue route and the trade route, the line will be created. So now you know how to send trade to your home. What about this piracy thing? There can be no piracy in systems with an upgraded starbase station, with an upgraded space station. This is just baseline a thing. In every system connecting to a point which in... So, for example, I'm producing 12 trade value here, and I want to get it safely to my home. I can send it through only systems with upgraded starbases. You can see this is upgraded, this is upgraded, this is upgraded, this is upgraded. So if I send it here, no piracy will ever happen to it. Just as a thing. So if you try to collect a whole lot of trade value, either use increased collection range or make a line of space station connecting it. You could even do both if you have a very expansive empire. Each system, if you open this little map mode, you can hover over this little symbol right here and see what trade protection you have. Trade protection, you have some standards, some can be gained via traditions, and you can build star bases such as the defensive starbase buildings, the guns, the ship hangars, and they will also increase trade protection in a certain radius. As you can see here, trade protection has a value of X and guarantees that up to X trade value going through the system is protected, so no piracy will ever happen. This is as simple as it gets. Now, each system has trade protection. A trade route passing through a system with more trade value than trade protection causes piracy. So now you have 13 trade value in this little system. Now piracy happens. There exists a trade route value. It gets higher if more trade passes through the system, but I don't really know how it's calculated. You have a maximum piracy. You have a piracy effects, current piracy, and your piracy suppression, or base protection in this case. Piracy effect in essence means that if this number becomes greater than 1, part of the trade value that goes through the system will be lost. So assume you have 100 trade value going through the system, your piracy effects are minus 50, now only 50 trade value reaches your capital. Also, because trade value is greater than piracy suppression, your current piracy will grow to its maximum value in a certain number of days. This gets higher if you have more trade value going through and less base protection or suppression. Now, if you have a fleet with spaceships parked in the system, they will cause piracy suppression to go up. And piracy suppression destroys current piracy. Current piracy slowly piles up. You send a fleet in, current piracy goes way down. So if you have like 3 systems with a piracy problem, you can just take a fleet and tell it to patrol the systems. There's a way to patrol ships in the game, so you can just do that. If piracy suppression is greater than max piracy, there is no piracy. Trade route value is greater if you trade route value is greater if you're that's what I already said. If current piracy becomes max piracy, a hostile fleet is spawned. The strength is proportional to the trade value coming through. I will not go over how big the fleet is. You should usually be able to deal with it fairly easily. There is, however, on the wiki a list of what fleets come up if you're actually interested. I can link it to you if you're interested. Right. With high current piracy, the trade value is going down. That's what I already talked about. And my suggestion to you is just spam space stations, upgrade the space stations, and use Trade Hub to collect trade value, and never let it go through systems without a space station. Chapter 1: Habitats, Economy, and Growth. So let's just real quick point out how many buildings we can have on a habitat. With the adaptive ecology tradition, which should be in adaptation, you have +1 building slots. Modular superstructures tradition gives you +1, only available to void dwellers, and it's in prosperity. Voidborn Ascension perk gives you +2, and the infrastructure technologies give you 1 each. And then you have your upgraded habitat control building, and you get +2. So in total, you get 8 building slots per habitat in your late game. Right. Now, let's get to the interesting part. How does pop growth work by now? It wasn't like this long ago, but now it has changed. You have a certain planet capacity. I will simply tell you what the planet capacity is with certain buildings built, because we are just talking about habitats. There is a big formula to find out what your planet capacity is, but your goal is for your planet capacity to be twice as big or bigger than your planet population. And then you will have positive population growth. Assuming that you have a habitat with fully built out, fully upgraded, and you don't have any housing buildings, only those districts that give you +3 housing, like the generator districts or something like that, you get up to a planet cap of 29. And per housing building, you get +5 planet cap. Now, let's look at habitats for merchants. Assuming that you have a fully upgraded habitat with one housing building, spanned with trade buildings, one specialist trade building that gives you +2 merchant jobs instead of +1, and the pop assembly plant. You can change it out for something else if you want. This is just a general idea of what you could put in there. You get a 36 planet cap and 18 pops working, assuming that you don't employ any clerks or enforcers, which I will say is the baseline. And with this being equal, you have no pop growth deficit. So this is the idea you should go with if you want to make a trade habitat. If you care about your pops growing. Assuming you don't upgrade your habitat, you have 0 housing buildings, 4 trade buildings, same amount of specialty buildings, you get 18 planet cap and 15 pops, which leads to a -2.4 pop growth, which is applied before modifier, so this is quite painful. If you, however, change out 2 of those trade districts for 2 housing districts, your planet cap goes up to 28, and you get to house 13 pops in there, which with incubators gives you +24% pop growth. And since you are below the maximum pops, you do get, positive pop growth. And I think this is the ideal trade habitat. You want to spam out as many unupgraded habitats as you can and fill them with 2 trade districts, 2 housing districts, and a bunch of base unupgraded trade buildings, the one special trade building that gives you 2 jobs and +20% output for your trade value, and maybe a pop assembly building or a random building which adds 2 jobs, anything you want, maybe your psionic enforcers. And I think this is the ideal habitat. This also means that this can act as a incubation habitat, which allows for great pop growth. And since you will spam this out, you'll probably have like 10 of those, and 10 of those full pop growth. That has to be great. So let's talk about habitats for technicians. Assuming you have a fully upgraded habitat, you put in 2 housing districts, 6 energy districts, 1 energy building, the upgraded one, 1 hollow theaters, and 1 pop assembly building. You should still have a bunch of unused buildings. You get to a planet cap of 41 and 25 pops with no problems of housing. And in my testing, the pop growth here was positive. I don't know why. It shouldn't be. This is something that you could go for if you care for your pops to be happy and don't care about them growing. Otherwise, 3 housing districts, 5 energy districts puts you below the planet cap. That's probably the ideal thing. And now let's assume we went through all that, and now we just care for maximum efficiency foundries. You get 8 industrial districts, 1 Ministry of Production, 1 hollow theater for some amenities, 1 pop assembly plant, 1 alloy plant, the upgraded one obviously, and just 4 special resource buildings. Nothing special, just something to fill out those building slots. You get a total of 32 capacity for your planet and 29 pops. This means you will effectively get no pop growth on this planet. Assuming you want to do the same for science habitat, you get 5 science buildings, no upgrades, 1 research institute, 1 hollow theater, 1 pop assembly building, and 8 science districts. Planet cap of 33, 41 pops, and housing -8, which should be about -8 stability. which is about minus maybe 6% pop output. Assuming that you get the pops to fill both of those buildings, both of those habitats. I think those are the ideal habitats. Simply because you can spam these out and be very efficient in your holding pops. You are less efficient in making your habitats for your merchants, spamming out as many as you can of those, and then have relatively few foundry habitats and relatively few science habitats, but those are maxed out to the brim and filled with people to the brim coming from the merchant habitats. You use the merchant habitats as incubator habitats, creating pops for your foundry, for your science habitat. These science and foundry habitats will obviously be very crowded. They are full efficiency habitat, going for as many spots for people to live as possible. But that doesn't really matter if you have a lot of merchant habitats that act as incubator habitats. Also, important sideline, bring the incubator straight. On baseline, as I have told you before, that's like 24% extra pop growth. You only get, how much was it? 10% with rapid readers, or you get plus 0.001 pop assembly with budding. Not as much as 24%. And if you're on your main habitats, on your incubator habitats, that's from 3. That's a lot. Only upgrade your habitats for non-merchants, in my opinion. It's just not necessary for your merchants to be upgraded in that way. Just spend the alloys on more habitats and try to eke out as much unity, influence as you can. Get a fleet. A big fleet gives you more influence. Bigger fleet, more influence, more chance to build habitats. And yeah. And I don't really know where to put this, but commercial pacts give you and the empire you have the commercial pact with both 10% of each other's trade value. Assuming I have 100 trade value, he gets the bonus of 10 trade value. Also, now you can build branch offices on planets from the person you have a trade pact with. Chapter 2. Gospel of the Masses and Your Allies. This is a short one. Right. So, this little bit that says, from Pops? You say how I lied to you and told you that is only your living standards? That's also Gospel of the Masses. Per Spiritualist Pop, on this planet, you get 0.33 trade value. And, yeah. And I was always confused what this means. Spiritualist Pop give additional trade value on all planets and branch offices. What this little part means, effectively, read it as Spiritualist Pops give an additional trade value on your own planets and on planets with branch offices, which can potentially boost branch office value. So, effectively, all your friends also now have access to Gospel of the Masses. Could potentially be neat if you play with someone who is also spiritualist. And also, it's just a fun civic. Chapter 3. Pop Efficiency Technicians and Merchants. This is a long one. Strap in. So, let's talk about energy production in the late game using technicians. Those are the different techs that give you, extra energy output. Those 3 together, 60%. Let's say you manage to research applied superconductivity twice, makes it plus 70%. This will come into play later. You get your capacity subsidies, plus 50% output. You get a generator world, another 25% output. We could talk about generator worlds instead, giving plus 10%, but you have to keep in mind, Void Dwellers gives you another 15%, so on the same level, effectively. You might get the plus 10% here. Did I count that in? I did. Yeah. So you get another 10% from Greater Than Ourselves, the Greater Good, level 2. And then each point of stability above 50 gives you a bit. I assumed that you are about at 100 stability, but you get minus 20 pop approval since you are not going for Utopian Abundance, since you don't have infinite consumer goods, which is minus 12 stability, minus 7.2% output, which is 22.8% output from the 30 that is the maximum. So in total, one late game engineer, one late game, what's it called, technician, outputs a total of 21.66 energy. The minus 0.5, that's from our capacity subsidy. And the plus 2 here, that is from the energy nexus. This should be clear. If you want, I'll go through it somewhat slowly. You can have another look. Just pause the video if you have something interesting. Also, all of this is available on the wiki. All of this should be testable. This is common knowledge. Right. Let's talk about early game technicians instead. Let's say you just managed to get the plus 20% from field manipulation. You got your level 1 energy grid. You got your hands on capacity subsidies. You have a generator world, but you don't have greater good level 2. 20%, plus 50%, plus 25%. I made it 35%. Sure, you get plus 10%. All pops give extra output somewhere. I actually didn't put it in here. Completely forgot that, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be that much. So, right. In total, 6 plus 1, 2 or 5%. Since you get another 100%, that's in addition. Minus 0.5, 13.85 energy in total. Right. Let's talk about trade value. Trade value bonuses you get from many different places. And I don't assume that you get every single bonus you can. Let's start. Thrifty, we'll talk about that later. You might not be able to get that. You might not be able to get a Merchant of Numa governor. While you could get an Enclave trader, they are somewhat easy to get. I just assumed you didn't bother with it. I assume you have plus 30 stability. Just assume that you have a bit less stability and have an Enclave trader as well or something. This is just to give you an idea of what's happening. You have a trade station plus 20%. You could have Ring World or an Ecumenopolis or an Urban World. Might be the case, but I'm assuming you don't. Galactic Stock Market plus 20. You, as a Megacorp, you do not get buildings on your planet, so those two don't happen. I assume you don't have any criminals, you don't have any crime-related effects. I assume you are not xenophilic. You could definitely be, which would give you more trade value. I, however, assume that you have the Free Trader Civic. You might not get the Investor Ruler trait. You might be able to roll for it. It might be worth it. Mercantile Diplomatic Stance. Easy to get that. Import-export agendas. Agendas are not freely pickable. I assume you don't have that. Marketplace of Better Ideas. That's a tradition, you can get that. Mercantile Tradition Tree Finisher. Both of them. Mercantile Tradition Tree. If you want trade value, you go for Mercantile Tradition. It just happens. Same with Trade League. You want to go for a Trade League. So that's another 20%. I assume you are the president. I assume you finagled it so that the strongest person is the Federation president. I assume you are at a point where you can be the president. I also assume you finished the special project there. Then there are the galactic resolutions. I will talk about them in the next slide, but I'll just assume that you have plus 35% trade value from those, coming up to 185 if you kept track of the side here. Then I just assume you have the Galactic Trade Organization as the custodian, and you decided to go for Galactic Mobilization since that is just very good baseline. If you're lucky, you get the plus 5% from numistic data modeling. You don't have to. So, all in all, you get plus 190% trade value in the late game, roughly. Let's talk about resolutions. They are very, let's say, interesting. Defense privatization. Let's just look at this right here. Minus 10% naval cap, minus 25% naval cap, minus 40% naval cap. Yes, you do get extra trade value, plus 5% per level. But take a small dip. Don't go all in. Assuming that you go for the minus 80% naval cap here, and you go for another 50 naval cap here, that's minus 95% naval cap. You don't want that. You will be paying infinitely more money than you have, and the endgame crisis is a thing. Even though I'm not talking about this in this guide, but just don't take a small dip. Maybe go up to here. Get the plus minus 25%, but get the plus 10% trade value here. Give the mercenary some love. Maybe go only for the first level. Just as good. Don't go too hard in this. Small dip. Plus 10% extra trade value. And then you have Galactic Commerce. This is an interesting one. Since, as before, this one can be very painful, but to you, a merchant trade value aficionado, not as much. By far not as much. Bureaucrat upkeep, since you were converting your trade value into unity, energy, and consumer goods, you will not need bureaucrats. Oh, and amenities, of course, but you can just get the amenity jobs are generally not bureaucrats. You don't care about bureaucrat upkeep. Granted, naval cap, painful. Increase in bureaucrat upkeep, who cares? Small little bonus, neat. Minus 5% naval cap, again, painful. But you get a 5% bonus in trade value. And right here, this is added. This little tidbit here. Plus 10% resources from jobs. But minus 25% happiness. What this means is that your pops will output less, your workers will output less, since they are getting minus 25% happiness. But the 10% output from jobs, that should make up for it. Your miners will not be harmed as much as one might think from this. And your rulers, net 25% happiness, and a bit of upkeep. Who cares? You have a lot of consumer goods. That could be seen as a total win. Your habitats with 90% rulers will get a flat 25% happiness. Sure, your other habitats might suffer a tiny bit from that because of, some happiness loss, some stability loss, but you're making up for it. And you get another 5% trade value. If it wasn't for the naval capacity, I would say it's painful. But I would say go full with this. I'm thinking 1 or 2 levels here. All 5 levels here. Just go full. Something I'll mention real quick. Assuming that you decide to go Utopian Abundance, since you have the consumer goods for that, I'll talk about it a bit more. This could be very interesting. Your worker happiness is improved, which is nice. Workers get some more political power. Sure, whatever. You won't have as many of them. Plus 10% output is always nice. Nice edict. You ban some stuff like basic subsistence, stratified economy. You don't have that if you use utopian abundance. And you ban more stuff that you don't actually use. And you just get bonuses like less housing usage or less empire size from pops. Assuming that you go with utopian abundance, just get the greater good. It's free. Sure, minus 10,000 resource storage. Okay, sure, you can have as much storage. Just take a habitat and plop some of those resource storage buildings on there. It's not that big a deal. Really, it's not. Yeah. Also, minus 10% pop housing. You're using habitats. This will come in handy. Very. Also, 5% stability. The stability you lose here, you earn back here. Very neat. Right. Let's talk about trade value early game. You have your trade station. You have free traders. You are mercantile. You get the tradition. You get those traditions first. Like, if you want to go trade value, you go for the tradition tree first. Get your merchants from merchant buildings. No questions asked. You go mercantile, and then you boost everything. And those two you will have in the early game. Don't have any federation yet. You don't have any resolutions yet. Plus 60% trade value baseline. Now, let's actually talk about output. I am assuming that a base output of a merchant, if the merchant is thrifty, and has trading algorithms. I am just going with a baseline reasonable thing here. This here, what is this? Of course I don't understand my own stuff. Give me just a moment. Oh, right, this is just merchants themselves, yes. I should probably add that here. That confused me. Assuming that you have baseline merchants who give you 12% trade value in the late game, this means you get 34 trade value, but you probably have the trading algorithms ones, so 52 trade value in the late game, or 19 trade value if you don't have thrifty, or 24 if you have thrifty. So, if you want to go trade value, get thrifty. Plus 5. It's like a quarter of that added on top. That's neat. Get it. Now let's actually compare. I'm just taking a reasonable thing here. A thrifty merchant, 24 trade value, and a trading and thrifty merchant, 52 trade value. Your technician will be roughly half as good as your merchant. And late game, it will be a bigger disparity, but you cannot repeatable research extra trade value. That's a big downside. So, energy production repeatable, that doesn't exist for trade value. Also, your traders, your merchants are not actually workers. They are leaders. They are the high stratum. As that, they do cost more upkeep. However, double the output. And spammable. What do you need more? Small note, trade value isn't exactly energy. We will talk about that now. Welcome to Chapter 4, Trade Value Conversion. Now, there are a few different policies that you can have. Wealth creation is always available. Wealth creation just turns every one trade value into one energy. If you get the tradition, the mercantile tradition, you get access to consumer benefits and marketplace of ideas. 0.5 energy, 0.25 either consumer goods or unity. Depending on your strategy, you might go for the early unity rush, try to get as many traditions as possible, try to fill up the tradition tree as fast as possible, get to diplomacy as fast as possible to get to the trade league, or chill out a bit, get consumer goods, just get rid of all of your consumer goods production, get up some what's it called, some Nito clerics, some Nito priests. Maybe go that direction. Both possible. And then you get to your trade league. You have your little trade federation. And now one trade value is turned into O5 energy and O2 consumer goods and unity. Great. Just best thing you can have. Unity and consumer goods. If you could also get some science in there, that would be but you can't, sadly. Fair enough. You no longer need any administrators, and you no longer need any artisans, and you no longer need any technicians. 3 jobs turned into 1. Amazing. Assuming that you want to go with the new federation, the Holy Covenant, 1 trade value, 0.5 energy, 0.5 unity, both. Neat. If you want that, but nah. If you go for the Holy Covenant, you are not going hard into trade value. Just how it is. If you go Holy Covenant, you are just happy that you get some neat unity on the side. From now on, I will be always assuming that you're at a point where you can have a trade league. Now, what do you have here? A merchant is roughly similar with the energy output to an electrician. But they are also artisans. They make artisans redundant. If you spam enough merchants, they will pay for all your consumer good needs. And unity. They take care of unity as well. You need more unity? Get more merchants. You want a bit more energy? More merchants. You have way too many consumer goods? More merchants. That's just how we go. Also, tiny bit of amenities. So, very streamlined habitats. Just get your habitat. Don't upgrade it. Spam merchants. Done. Chapter 5. Living standards and their impacts. Now, we have already looked at the different living standards. For this right now, I'm just throwing in decent conditions, chemical bliss, social welfare, and utopian abundance. There are 3 different stratas of trade value production. You have those with 1 upkeep, you have those with 0.5 upkeep, and those with 0.25 upkeep. 0.5 upkeep, 1 upkeep in the late game gives you 1.45 trade value, which is roughly 2.3 consumer goods unity and 7.25 energy. So in essence, these pops have an 0.7 consumer goods upkeep, produce 0.3 unity and 0.7 energy. The 0.5 upkeep is in effect a 0.3 upkeep, 0.2 unity, 0.5 energy. And the 0.25 upkeep is in effect a 0.15 upkeep, 0.1 unity gain, and 0.3 energy gain. If you go for something that allows you to have an upkeep of 1, your excess consumer goods, which you will have because you will have merchants if your upkeep, if your consumer goods are if you actually care about this. If you actually care about this, you will have merchants. You will have way too many consumer goods. As such, you spend 0.7 consumer goods to turn into 0.2 unity and 0.5 energy. Every pop is a mini priest, or I would say a mini manager, because they produce energy and unity, trade value and unity. But who cares? I personally am of the opinion that going for egalitarian, if you go for a hard trade value build, is mostly always worth it. Right. Now, my opinion. Be egalitarian. As soon as you have a bunch of merchants up and the trade league, go utopian abundance. It's always worth it. Boosts happiness by a massive 20% for everyone. You don't have any consumer goods problems, and you get your little extra unity from every single pop. Now, something that I have not tried, don't necessarily plan on trying, but something that is neato, I think. Chemical bliss. Since all of your merchants will be lonely on that one station that you have, where they pump out more pops and consumer and trade value, if you modify that one species that the pops on just that habitat into a different template and give them chemical bliss, maybe don't give them the trading. Maybe don't give everyone the trading algorithms. Only give your merchants the trading algorithms. Only the people on the merchant habitat get the trading algorithms. Then you can give them a separate living standard, and then you can give them chemical bliss. That is a massive, and I mean massive, 40% happiness. Minus output from jobs, who cares? They don't have any output. They have a modifier that they add. 40% happiness. Chemical bliss. Granted, it is very, very micro-intensive. Whenever a new pop arrives, is placed down on the habitat, usually the auto resettlement will take care of it, which was added, best add addition in the game, whatever. You now have to modify him to no longer be under chemical bliss. If you want to min-max, if you are not playing with others, this might very much be worth it. For me, it will never be worth it. Small, just side tangent. Paradox. Please add automatic template application. I want to add a template to a planet, and if someone enters or leaves the planet, I just want them to be given that template automatically. Like, I'm even willing to pay for it, like, as I already do. Just don't have me do the micro. Oops. Chapter 6. Bulk selling resources. Now, let's talk about bulk selling resources. What you can see here is a list that I have gotten from the wiki. This is just how much each resource is priced at regarding energy credits. So one mineral should be worth about 1 energy credit. Now, assuming that you sell a lot of them, the price will go down up to 20% of the normal price. Down to 20% of the normal price. And then, if you buy a lot of them, the price will go up to 500% of the normal price. I simply added the 400 extra percent, or put it down to 20%, and then I added a 30% tax and a 5% tax. By default, you get a 30% tax. With some modifiers that I will touch on later, you get a 5% tax. And since you will probably have an overload of consumer goods, you can see here, assuming that you stay at your 30% tax, each one of your consumer goods, assuming that you are selling hundreds of them each month, will only be worth a quarter of an energy credit. If you need the money, sure, sell your consumer goods. Otherwise, they are great for bribing other empires. And, you know, if you're playing with friends, just tell them, I'll give you 5 consumer goods per alloy or something. You can make a good deal with your friends. They don't need to care about consumer goods ever. You'll take care of that. Also, getting the tax down, very, very worth. That's like a third increase. That's like an increase by 10. And it's 30, so a third increase. That's, wow, big. Now, I'll leave this here for just a moment. We can have a look. Maximum price if you're buying, and minimum price if you're selling. Yeah. Now, if you want to reduce the tax, you can get the import and export agenda. You can get the insider trading tradition, which you will do because you're a merchant. Adaptive programming tradition. I believe that is only available to mechanicals, but I might be wrong. You can also host the galactic market. And then there are the trader proxy office buildings. If you have a trader enclave, those guys that sell you specialty resources for energy each month, if you have one of them in your empire and they are close to you, you can have them build a trader proxy office for you on one of the star bases, and you get -5% market fee. That is great. Just, just get it. Why wouldn't you? One of those, the insider trading, and you manage to host the galactic market, that's down to the minimum tax. That's what you want. Chapter 7. Ethics, Attraction, and Factions. Now, you can simply go Psi Ascension and increase your spiritualist faction happiness and ethics attraction. But if you go cybernetic, you get plus 25% output regarding, trade value. And that's kind of what we like. So how about we are spiritualists but still ascend, commercially, aka trading algorithms. Now, what's needed for that? You need cybernetic ascension, and you need a spiritualist faction, which is unhappy about it, because you are gospel of the masses. You want many of those. To assemble your pops, you will need to have your robotic workers allowed. I suggest you hold off on that until you are able to actually produce cybernetic pops with that instead of just robots. You don't have to take my word for that. You can do whatever you want. But I don't think that artificial intelligence servitude is necessary. You can keep artificial intelligence outlawed, I think, and get your cybernetics. Now, if you play this right, all your pops should be spiritualists with gospel of the masses. And as you can see here, base happiness of the people, of the religious people, 50%, minus 30% for the flesh speak because we ascended cybernetically, and minus 5% because we allow robotic workers. 5% because we are spiritualist, 10% because, most of them are spiritualist. They really, really, really want you to go psionic. We will not give them the favor of that. They will suffer a minus 10% happiness. Every pop in your empire will be minus 10% happy because we had to ascend commercially. They would much rather just meet a shroud entity. Too bad. Though, one thing that we cannot do is allow intelligent servitude. That bumps it down to 40% happiness. Minus 40% happiness if you also allow artificial intelligence. So, yeah. Let's just hope that artificial intelligence servitude is not necessary. But, assuming that it is not, we can actually ascend commercially and be gospel of the masses, which I'm very happy about. Let's talk ethics attraction. This is the part that I'm very, very uncertain about, but I'll try my best. So, each ethic is assigned a number, and the relation of these numbers is the percentage of pops that will follow each ethic. For example, ethic 1 has 1, ethic 2 has 2, so it's 1 to 2, so 33% will be ethic 1, and 66% will be ethic 2. So far, so clear. Now, the number that you have is baseline 1, and then you add 0.5 if you're if the faction is the leader of the empire. You add 2 if you have the faction as one of the ethics you have, and you add 3 if you have the ethic in fanatical form. And then you multiply that by an applicable number that you can see here. For example, assuming that you are a subject of a spiritualist or fanatic spiritualist empire, you boast that number. You multiply the number by 2. If you're a defense pact or commercial pact or federation with the spiritualist empire, times 1.5. There are more of these lists for the different other ethics in the wiki, but since we are talking about spiritualism and we want to go hard on spiritualism, that is what we need. Notable, pop is cybernetic. That has a 1. They did say that they wanted to change it. In the tooltips, it is changed. But I don't think that the change is massive. It does not... in this right here, already ascended synthetically, and I still have 88% and no materialists. It's not going to be substantial. So, and then, assuming you have Gospel of the Masses, or Faction Promotion, Suppression, Veneration of Saints, and Government Ethics Attraction, you just add X% on that, as you would normally. Small pointer. Promote and suppress your factions. As far as I know, the only downside is if you suppress a faction, the faction will become unhappy and by that produce less unity. But faction promotion is free. So promote and suppress your factions. And yeah, and by just trying a bit, you can easily reach 80 to 90% spiritualist pops. I didn't try particularly hard here, but I got to 88. So, why not? You can get there easily. Let's talk branch offices. I will keep this somewhat short. I will not go over each building. There's a list of them. If you open the branch office that you just built, you can see a list of the different buildings. You see a building that gives you plus 10 energy per month. You need energy, you place the building down. Easy as that. But, how do branch offices even work? And I will just read out this little text that I found on the wiki because I could not have phrased it any better. Branch offices can be constructed by empires with the corporate authority and give the corporate empire energy equal to 50% of the world's trade value. The Free Trader Civic and the Imperial Charter modifier each increase the branch office value by 10%. Establishing a branch office costs a base of 1000 energy and 50 influence, and increasing by 10% for each hyperland jump away after 3 jumps. So you get 3 jumps and then it starts increasing. And increases the corporate empire's size by 2. The establishment costs can be reduced by 15% with universal transactions. Ascension perk, only 1 branch office can be opened on each world, and they cannot be constructed on worlds with an empire with a corporate, hive mind, or machine authority. To construct a branch office, you need the corporate empire. You need to be a corporate empire. Also, there's a list of different things you need, but basically, you need a commercial pact, or you need to have some other equivalent interaction with them. For example, being a federation. So, what are the most important buildings that you can build? Commercial forum. That's it. Plus 75% branch office value, plus a merchant which is 12 trade value baseline. That is great. If they have any clerks, which, stupid AI always kind of has, you get a bunch of energy there. Also, into the late game, this scales wonderfully. You just want that. And then maybe Temple of Prosperity. If you are going with a Gospel of the Masses, 50% spiritualist ethics attraction on the planet means you get more spiritualist pops on the planet, means more plus 0.33 consumer good, 0.33 trade value per pop. That's neat. Though exclusive to Gospel of the Masses, and yeah, spiritualist ethics attraction is neat. The other two, corporate embassy, plus 5% diplomatic weight from your economy. Very useful if you want to spam 50 of those to just get ludicrous diplomatic weight. Or executive retreat, assuming that you somehow lack amenities on your empire, spam a few of those, plus 30 percent amenities on each one of your planets easily. Though there are some buildings that might also be worth it. Plus 10 naval cap, not necessarily something to scoff at. Now, corporal holdings, criminal holdings, I'll just do the same. Empires with a criminal heritage civic do not require any formal relationship to establish a branch office, but if they do not meet any of the usual requirements, the world's owners get the expropriation casus belli. Additionally, there is a 5% chance monthly that the branch office is closed while the planet has zero crime. The Criminal Heritage Empire cannot have another branch office closed for 10 years. The Criminal Heritage Empire cannot have another branch office closed for 10 years, but the branch office cannot be reestablished on the same world for another 10 years either. Criminal Heritage Empires also cannot establish a branch office when they are at war or have a truce with the system owner. Meaning, you get to place your branch offices everywhere, but they can start a war to get them out, and if they get crime to zero, they will be closed. But Criminal Heritage Empires also have a different set of holdings, and that increases the world's crime. In addition to the usual energy credits, they generate additional value based on the world's crime value, ranging from 25% of trade value at zero crime and 75% trade value at 100% crime. Now, you get about 30 crime by opening a branch office. 50 if you get a smuggler's port, which is the commercial forum counterpart. 25 with the subversive shrine. There are some that add 40. On very new planets, they will not be able to counteract this, but there will be very little profit in there. On very big planets, they can just get telepaths, get some different things. The AI generally doesn't like crime, meaning you'll probably not be able to hold out and get a lot of trade value there. But should you find an AI that decides to live with it, that decides to take the crime Bastille, your energy gain will be amazing. Chapter 9, the strategy. Well, I am a Void Dweller origin. I want to go trade value. What do I do? Step 1, get the mercantile tradition. Always step 1, just get the mercantile tradition. Just do it. You want to trade value? That's what you do. Step 2, get the +2 metallurgist building everywhere. You need quick metallurgists. You need quick output of alloys. You can research as much as you want, but you need more habitats, and those you can get with metallurgists, aka, alloys. And then you start spamming habitats, as many as you can. And don't spam them everywhere, just spam them in your home system and in the systems around them. You will have a lot of trade value on those habitats, and you don't want that trade value to go around the whole systems. Maybe, if you have a few choke point worlds, put some habitats there, plan to make them military habitats at some point, but just get as many habitats as you can. Now, let's go for the nice part. You find a planet that's one jump away from one of your inhabited systems, one of your systems with your little, habitats. You don't get any systems around this one system. You get that system, you grab the planet, you settle it, release the sector as a vessel, you make it a sector, and if you make it a sector without having the surrounding systems, that becomes a one system sector, you release the vessel, and the vessel will like you, so you can instantly form a trade league. Congratulations. You are now peak mercantile. Then specialize your habitats, get rid of that +2 metallurgist building everywhere, get your metallurgist habitats, get your industry habitats, get your science habitats, get your mercantile habitats, and try to get vessels or trade partners. Maybe use the liberation casus belli to be spicy. Flip the Xenos. Keep the Xenos out if they are not thrifty, since you will probably not be able to genetically modify them particularly well. They will not get thrifty, meaning you probably don't want them on your planets. Maybe you feel differently than me. And then you become trading cyborgs or psionics or genetics, and you just have hundreds of habitats in like 5 systems and an absurd number of pops. And you either liberate or subjugate the galaxy, which will probably now be mostly spiritualist if you go Gospel of the Masses. My builds. What works best if you want to go mercantile? Let me introduce you to the Prophets of Profit, Profitable Profiteering Pangalactic Partnership. Or the PPP. Yeah, I like their name. They are great. Gospel of the Masses, Free Traders, Egalitarian, Fanatic Spiritualist. Sure, you're not Xenophile, so you will not get those extra spicy 10% trade value output, but everyone will be spiritualistic, and you get your extra trade value from free traders. So, who cares? Incubators, that is necessary. Thrifty, that is necessary. Non-adaptive, since you will be only living on habitats, who cares about non-adaptive? That's a free trade. And then maybe unruly and conformists. That is an interesting way to go. Get your Gospel of the Masses some extra strength. Or, if you're feeling particularly spicy, go with Cognito Inc. Criminal Heritage, Gospel of the Masses, Egalitarian, Spiritualist. And instead of, conformists, intelligent. You can mix and match. And some other good ethics or civics, brand loyalty. More unity is always nice, especially if you're spiritualist. Ascensionist, the new one. Maybe spec into it in the late game. But you will be getting a lot of unity late game. And this would be a great unity sync. Especially since your habitats are very good to modify. Your habitats give you plus trade value output. And, getting a singular trade habitat, spamming it with all the improved buildings, spamming it into making it a big building, big habitat, and then ascending that habitat into the stratosphere could be great. Franchising, shared destiny, for domination, get as many vessels as you want. Mutagenic spars, you will have 8 industrial districts at most, meaning plus 8% pop growth speed. Still, could be fun, but probably not on your industrial habitats which you want to use them on. Something to consider, but I would actually say probably don't. And then permanent employment. The upside of the zombies is they don't get a -2 trade value. So, get permanent employment early game. Drop a couple of those zombies that are free. Place them as clerks, because they can only be clerks. And then, when you leave the early game, get your pop assembly rush. Get your pop assembly. And get rid of permanent employment. Yeah. But, downside, you cannot have access to utopian abundance. And if you actually go for the spiritualist thing, you will not really get the chance to go utopian abundance late game, because you will just not have the majority, the egalitarian majority for this, sadly. But yeah, you could go Xenophile, some more trade value, or militarist, just makes wars easier. And yeah. Now, small shout out. Not sure. I think it was Lathland, a YouTuber, who first came up with the Prophets of Profit, I think a couple of years ago. Might have been the YouTuber that got me into Stellaris, and yeah, just small shout out at the end here. Probably won't hear it, but thank you for being a cool Stellaris YouTuber, I guess, that, isn't really necessarily only Stellaris, but I like the Prophets of Profit. They're great. Thank you. Yeah. Hope you all guys have a good time. See ya.